They're going to lower the groundwater table even further because groundwater is a natural filter, right? When you interrupt that filter, now you're going to be exposing water to higher temperatures and other potential contaminants, like in this case with mining.
Dead.
Worth Creek, east of Mission, is a natural gem of salmon production. In the 1970s and 80s, recognizing its value, DFO, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, funded a successful habitat restoration project aimed at increasing spawning numbers in Worth and several other nearby streams. Up to 10,000 chum and coho arrived and spawned annually.
You want them to tell us exactly what's going on here, why they are allowing it, what the gravel is being used for, is it being sold, who's selling it, and why they haven't enforced the Fisheries Act to prevent damage to habitat.
But recently, something went terribly wrong. In early December of 2024, I found myself staring incomprehensibly at a bone-dry stream I'd visited many times before. I phoned the DFO hotline to report the creek was littered with spawned-out carcasses. The spawners' eggs, without oxygen, were probably long dead. Biologists John Werring and Marvin Rosenau would subsequently take samples of reds that proved me right.
It often depends just how many fish come in, because you can get fish spawning on top of where fish spawned before. So you can have red after red, 2 or 3 of them in the same location sometimes. But the fish are usually fairly particular about the flow of water that they detect and say, okay, this is the place I want to lay my eggs. These have all the characteristics. It's got the gravel I need, it's got the flow I need, and they just water flowing over top of me. We'll dig a hole, put the eggs in, backwash them, and die, and hope Mother Nature allows for them to survive.
BC salmon are threatened with extinction. Why was this little gem of natural salmon returns lost this way? There were important questions for agencies mandated to protect fish and habitat. In January 2025, John Werring and Marvin Rosenau, fisheries experts with decades of experience and knowledge, would link the dead eggs with a sudden loss of groundwater flow westward from nearby Norris Creek. The big question now was, what dried up that underground water from Norris Creek, alluvial fan, to Worth Creek? Secondly, what can be done to prevent further salmon destruction in this salmon-rich marshland? There are 6 other creeks here. What can be done to restore this amazing area for salmon and wildlife?
So we know the water level's down. You can see that the creek is pretty much dried up. But then the question is, if they laid eggs in the gravel, are the eggs still wetted sufficiently and oxygenated enough to survive? And what I'm looking at here would be a situation where I would say no, because there is no groundwater flow through the gravel. All the eggs that we've seen are white, cloudy, milky, or pink, but not thriving. Here's a prime example. If that was a viable egg, it would look clear, and you would probably start to see some embryonic formation inside of it.
Dead. Well, historically, these coho habitats that are groundwater fed, like this one, are really special. Not a lot of them left because of development, but this one has had its problems because of its link to the groundwater associated with Norris Creek, and Norris or Suicide Creek has had a lot of development, particularly the CP rail bridge maintenance has been a real issue. And so the groundwater that feeds this stream appears to be profoundly affected, and potentially this year, as an example, the amount of cuts and erosion that you can see both downstream and upstream of the bridge through gravel removal is just massive. I can smell the stinky.
Dr. Rosenau consulted in gravel removal for flood control in the 1990s. He says he would never have approved the amount taken from the stream in recent years.
I'm not opposed to gravel removal for flood protection if it's done using proper engineering and biological techniques. This particular project on Suicide Norris Creek looks to me as pure environmental rape. That's all I could describe it as pure environmental rape.
Further examination of Worth Creek by John Werring revealed excessive deposits of sand entering the stream from an unnamed tributary that flows from above Hawkins Pickle Road, along a large sand and gravel storage site, into the lower end of Worth Creek. Later, I'll talk to Lee, a sports fisherman, who remembers this unnamed stream so full that many salmon would spawn in the ditch on the north side of Hawkins Pickle Road.
What's your name again?
Lee?
And Lee, you're a fisherman. You fished here about 15
Yeah,
years. Have
15,
you even
20
seen
years.
fish in this little dry creek here?
Yeah, both down here and on the opposite side of the road here. And haven't seen them over the last few years. So I don't know if the creek's dried up or what, but it usually has a lot of chum and coho. So
Thanks very much.
yeah, no problem.
Now here, the outside of the pit comes this way, and that tongue of gravel that comes down off the pit intersects it. And that's that channel that's coming along. See, here's the channel.
Yeah. Oh, look at
It's
that.
all full of sand.
Ah.
There's the pit.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is looking downstream
Yeah.
from there. That's further downstream. This is further downstream. Sand, sand, and then sand, more sand, more. This is the other channel that comes this way.
Yeah.
This is the intersecting point. There's sand right here, and from there, it's nothing but sand
Werring says
all the way down.
if there were eggs in Worth Creek or here, they'd be smothered.
My suspicion is it's all over here.
Werring says groundwater cannot flow eastward anymore. He believes the deep holes in Norris Creek redirected Norris Creek flow away from Worth Creek into the Norris Creek main channel to Nickerman Slough. He has since reported the muddy water in the unnamed stream to the DFO and the Fraser Valley Regional District, asking them to investigate. Both agencies say they are looking into it, but have provided few details. 2 weeks after making his complaint, Werring and I returned to the unnamed creek to see what had been done to stop muddy water flowing into Worth.
We're walking downstream from the storage pile where the gravel is being sorted and washed. We're about 75 to 100 meters downstream. And what we're seeing down here is, again, no flow, but evidence there was flow. The center of the channel is filled with sand and parts of the banks on the side. Normally, that sand would come from stream bank erosion, but we're not seeing any stream bank erosion. So the question is, where's the sand coming from? I suspect they've been washing gravel on that site and dumping their wash water into the creek here. That's the only thing I can think of that would lead to such a deposit.
So this is the mouth. This is the mouth of Worth Creek.
This is the mouth of Worth Creek. We've just reached the Norris Creek channel, east side channel. Again, there's no flow through here. All the water is stagnant. But what we see here is we've been following this creek for a couple of 100 meters, and we've encountered deposit of sand throughout the entire channel. And now here we are at the mouth where this massive deposit of sand lies, and there's no erosion happening in the stream. Where is the sand coming from? DFO, please have a look, find out. Okay, I'm going to estimate this change in elevation from where we entered the creek at the top to where we are now. at about 6%, 5 to 6% grade, which is perfect habitat for spawning fish.
Yep.
Absolutely perfect. Might even be a little bit less than 5. But
This is John Werring taking some shovel samples of what's here at the mouth of Worth Creek, and it's all sand. It's all sand. So this is not habitat for fish, but it should be.
here, this water here, this is groundwater from Norris itself, right? So the groundwater right now, compared to the bed level of Norris Creek, is down at least, I'm going to say 4 meters, 3 meters, right from the center berm.
Yeah.
And even,
Even so, some will get in here.
well, yeah, because there's water flowing under the gravel. It's slowly migrating this way, but there's no discernible flow. And when they create great big holes like this, it just fills up the groundwater. Well, the groundwater's not going to go over there anymore. It's got to go through the ground. Right now, it's just flow down into the hole.
hydraulic pressure anymore.
Yeah.
Again, at the mouth of the unknown creek near the gravel pit here, when John Werring reported this to DFO, the agent he talked to said, "Oh, gee, I guess we'll get them to put in some sediment control." Well, this is it. This is what you see for their sediment control, but it does not appear to be doing anything to control what's going down this creek. This is Jack Emberly along the Fraser, near Norris Creek, near Dudney. I wondered what the hell that is.
Proposed gravel extraction on the other side of the tracks.
Big sign on the
Big sign.
Well, what do they do? Where are they taking? They're not taking. It's just a bore. It's just a pile, isn't it?
No,
a bore
no,
pit?
there's a big field over there, and the sign is right on the corner of the field. They want to take gravel out of there, and the proposal is to dig anywhere from 2 to 7 meters deep. And they say even at 7 meters, they would still be 2 meters above the historical high water level for groundwater. The creek we were looking at, Worth Creek, is on the south side. It's fed by a culvert that goes underneath the bridge into this ditch that goes along here. So groundwater in this entire area is feeding this way to the south and flooding into Worth Creek. And one of the things we're seeing is with the groundwater fluctuation, the creek is drying up. If they mine this area here and they take the gravel out of here, they're going to seriously disrupt the groundwater, and Worth Creek will essentially dry up. There's no question. I mean, it's already drying up now with intact ground. Once they dig pits and take the gravel out, they're going to have to dewater as part of their process to make sure that they can keep working in here. So they're going to lower the groundwater table even further, and we can just say goodbye to Worth. Minimum flow requirements for salmon in these creeks have been known for 40 years.
Okay.
Right? Since 1979, when they identified what the minimum flow requirements are. But since then, there's just been ongoing, more and more gravel extraction, more and more lowering the water table And you saw that video I sent you there. There's no flow. None. Surface flow is nothing. In fact, above the railroad bridge is a road that goes right across the river, the creek channel, with a 30-centimeter culvert. That's the only option for water coming down that creek bed to go down past that road. Process, like the environmental assessment, was calling for mitigation.
Okay, did you
The First Nations were promised mitigation to ensure that the works that are being done would restore habitat.
Where did you hear that or read that?
It was in the actual environmental assessment is archived.
Oh, you've seen it, huh?
It had no, not the actual assessment. It just has the scope and the purpose of the work, the what's going to be done, and what the decision was. I'm a retired biologist. I've been a member of the College of Applied Biology, or I was, for going on 35 years. Recently withdrew from the college, but I have a long history of working with people like Marvin on gravel extraction, fish habitat protection in the lower mainland, and throughout the province for the most part. There's a slight depression there, right? And there's water in it. That would be groundwater, because there's no stream feeding that. That's much less than 2 meters below the surface, right? But even then, it's not enough to feed Worth Creek. So it's just a complication. It's a complication on the whole notice of work and what's going to happen. And then, as we discussed further down the tracks here, the whole slope at the back there all forms part of this groundwater recharge area, including the flow from Norris Creek, which pushes over this way, right? So, affect that, affect this, and one would affect that downslope. Water flows downhill, right? Right, the rise of ground on the far side over there, all those humps, along that tree line, back, up onto this slope, across the slope, and then down towards Railway Creek on this side. So that's where, that'll be all, this hillside will probably be blasted and ground up.
That hillside.
Well, you saw that map, the
Yeah.
map that looked like the inverted seven, right?
Right.
So those, you see the high ups on the far side there?
Uh-huh.
That's the part that they're talking about, that's all grass and trees. So that's all gonna go up to the toe of the slope, then across the toe of the slope, up to, I don't think they said they wanted to go up 130 meters or something. Across the toe of the slope, and then down on that side, down towards railway.
Right.
And the slope, right?
And so when we were up there was a big application to mine sign
There
right
was
there,
an
posted right
application
there,
to
and said
mine
check
sign.
in at the Leckamel Land
Right.
Resources Office
And now
for
the
information.
the sign is gone.
Now it's gone.
Now, I don't know what that means. Does that mean, okay, we've approved it now, you can take your sign down, you don't have to post it out?
Or does it mean it shouldn't have been here?
Hard to say.
Yeah. Let's get some answers to that.
Hard to say, but that's the, yeah.
Flew over and they put it back in. Not there now.
But if submissions have been extended, but the sign isn't enough to allow anybody to know about it.
So now the plan, according to what I've read in the notice of works, up in that, you see that rock face, that white rock face?
Yep.
Just to the left of that,
Yeah.
there's where it dips down.
Uh-huh.
That's where they're planning on putting their settling pond, settlement pond for washing
Yes.
and stockpiling. And then this road is going to go right along the toe of the slope around there to access the stockpile and gravel on the far side.
Well, washing and sorting, that sort of thing have to be done properly, right?
They are required, or would be required to have a permit in this case from the district commission. That's right.
And do they?
I don't know.
And who
Well,
issued?
because the permit hasn't been approved yet, maybe there's no permit issued, but they need a permit for gravel extraction, aggregate extraction, over 1,000 metric cubic meters a year. And this proposal is for 22,000. think it was 22 or 220,000 a year. Substantially larger. They need a permit for both extraction and for processing.
And you've tried to find out if they had them.
We have no idea yet. You can see the little valleys,
Yeah.
right? The little nicks in the rocks,
Right.
and that's all going to channel water. So there's a channel. This is actually part of the groundwater recharge zone. So the water that comes down off that hill comes down into the floodplain and soaks into the floodplain. Not only it fills the slough,
Yeah.
and it feeds creeks, but it fills the whole floodplain.
Yeah.
So by taking all that off, they're interrupting the natural groundwater recharge for that entire section, right? And for down here,
Right.
because water flows downhill.
You know, everybody should know that.
Well,
Yeah, everybody should know that.
I mean, groundwater recharge doesn't just come, like, it's not just from Norris Creek coming this way because it's a creek.
I
right?
see it's coming from a number
Like,
of places.
all the water that feeds into Norris Creek,
Yes.
it's coming down off the hillsides.
Yeah.
From way in back to where it
Right.
starts, all the way down. There's little rivulets and channels and stuff. It all flows down into the water. A lot of it flows down the channel. A lot of it sinks into the ground. And it does the same thing here. When the snow melts, when the rain, the water comes down through these little channels that you can see, comes down into the floodplain, fills the groundwater.
Well,
Snow goes
yeah.
up and down.
That's an amazing system that nature has, and when man interferes with it, that affects all of the.
See, not only does it
dependent creeks.
affect the amount of water, it also affects the quality of water.
Yeah.
Because the ground
filters it.
is a natural filter, right?
Right.
When you interrupt that filter, now you're going to be exposing water to higher temperatures and other potential contaminants. Like in this case, with mining, there'll be nitrates from explosives. There'll be dust from sorting and graveling and crushing and trucking, and so you're going to be affecting the quality of the groundwater as well.
We should know to what degree before we start putting shovels in the ground.
This is the whole
and blasting rock.
concept and rationale behind what they used to call the environmental assessment. Proponents were required to make those assessments prior to doing any kind of work. Those projects, reports, were reviewed by government officials. They're not reviewed anymore because they're ostensibly prepared by qualified professionals hired by the proponent. And now that information is corporate, it's private, it's not available for public review.
That's not good.
No. But I mean, as a biologist and as a naturalist, you just come out and you look and you go, okay, where does the water go that comes down like snowpack? I mean, there's like, you got mountains behind here, right? Its elevation can only go up, increases. So water, snow melt, from rainfall is all going to come channeling down these hills into this area, recharging the aquifer. That's how the groundwater aquifers get charged and recharged, right? You suck water down, more water comes in and goes up. And it's like a sponge, goes up and down. I remember I was telling you to look at those rocks that were close to Worth Creek. There was like a little wet margin at the base of the rocks. That's because the Fraser River was flowing out to the sea, and so it didn't have any lateral pressure to charge the aquifer, and so the aquifer drops down. And then when the tide comes in, the river backs up, the water force laterally is greater, it charges the aquifer. And it's that constant ebb and flow that helps, number one, maintain aquifer levels, and number two, it actually allows for water circulation and recharge and cleaning.
It's a
in the
good
ground,
system.
right?
Good system, and
Yeah.
it works when it's left alone.
And that looks like a bit of a beaver dam down there.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Now this is like what they call a gem, right?
Yes, that's
A
right.
gem of habitat.
Yes.
That's another gem.
So we're standing on the north side of a culvert that would feed into Worth Creek on the other side of the railroad bridge. And right here, this is bone dry. So what probably happened
So
here?
there
John?
is some tendency, some water to flow from this portion of the land down towards Worth Creek. Problem is we can't see it, right? But water will follow its natural tendency and flow down it, and it flows through the ground. In this case, there's a culvert under here that was meant to facilitate the draining of this field and this ditch. The field and the ditch are currently dry.
Because it has not rained for several days.
It has not rained for several days.
Yeah, and that's a problem because there used to, if it had, and that had been water in there probably would have been coho spawning in there as well. Well, I've heard up to 50 in different.
You know, I don't know about spawning, but certainly for rearing, they would come up the culvert and they would spread out. I mean, ideal rearing habitat with all this cover over top of it, right? You're protected from birds, you're protected from mammals, you're protected from, so it would be ideal rearing habitat if it's wetter. And now normally in a real life situation, the fish would migrate, you know, they can sense when the water rises and they would follow that water upstream and they'd get into these areas and they would sense when it's dropping and they would come back out and they would probably go back down into Worth. Unless there's some kind of catastrophic event that causes the water to drop suddenly and then they'll get stranded.
Running from the mountains through the valleys to the sea, the Aird and the Honey, Nass and the Stickeen. Rivers are the lifeblood of the land that is my heart. Everywhere she flows, the river leaves a mark. Running from the mountains through the forests and plains, creeks that some call ditches, swollen by the rains, streams into rivers, lifeblood of my heart. Everywhere she flows, river leaves a mark. Whoa.
When in the 1990s.
This is a side channel of Norris Creek. And Marvin and John are talking about, it would have been a productive side channel, but it's blocked off down there, so water may have been prevented from coming in here, but at some time, but there are still reds in the gravel, which means that fish did get in here. Some number of fish did get in here. And biologists believe that it could be productive again with a little work.
Just massive. Yeah, right there. There's just a massive school right there. So here's where it's going.
There's a hole in this dam here of natural debris, and Werring believes that salmon would swim right through that and spawn in this side channel, which is a lengthy, very productive area where we saw a number of spawned out carcasses. This is another side channel of Norris Creek, directly opposite Worth Creek, with huge potential for salmon spawning and rearing, if the river was brought up to allow for that, for water to flow into it.
This is where I watched them come in, and I asked where it was. Was it from Norris? They said, yes.
Okay. Well, then we know that the Norris Creek gravel is coming to this location. So this location is a distribution site to the rest of the Lower Mainland. So the Norris Creek gravel is being loaded on trucks in Norris, deposited here, sorted, piled, and then put in trucks and then taken somewhere else. That's what we do now, I think, at this point. Right? Now, question. When we talk about whether this has any relation to CP, is that CP land? They permitted what's going on. They have taken all the gravel out of the river. They are sorting it, washing it, distributing it, and making money from it under the guise of flood protection for a bridge. So I think that warrants an investigation. Like Marvin was very adamant that we should get the Attorney General of Canada and have an investigation as to who even permitted
the
it.
letter was CC'd to the Attorney General of BC, wasn't it?
Of BC, yes.
Yes.
But has anybody talked to the RCMP and said, hey, well, I think that's an option. What are they going to say? No? When you report what may be a potential fraud on the people of British Columbia that amounts to $10 million at least. And then you take 100,000 cubic meters and you multiply it by the value of the gravel aggregate. That's easily found online.
Later on, when there was a bit of a dry spell, Worth Creek, which has been a long-standing enhanced stream since the 1980s, is perfectly dry, and we dug up just piles of dead, we call them eggs, but they were embryos. So it clearly, the groundwater level has now been drawn down to a point where the Worth Creek is no longer functioning. Well, to preface this, in the 1990s, I was part of this project because I was a Ministry of Environment, British Columbia Ministry of Environment employee. I worked closely with DFO. And we would have never allowed this amount of gravel to be taken out. Now DFO has clammed up, they've turned turtle, and they're refusing to talk to us, telling us that we have to go through access to information in order to get even the most basic data, like applications and approvals and stuff like that. I've found absolutely nothing from DFO. They basically shut right up. The province, which also has the Water Act, Water Sustainability Act, Section 11, you're not supposed to work in and about a stream unless you've got authorization, knew nothing about this when we talked to them, absolutely nothing. And apparently the proponent has basically told us they can do whatever they want vis-a-vis provincial regulations.
So just to be clear, DFO, you can't get any information from them. The province, so far, you can't get anything from them.
And they don't seem to know anything about it.
Okay. The company, what are they telling you?
Well, we're not hearing anything. It's just crickets. So we're basically in a vacuum here.
You've spent your entire career working on issues like this. When you see what's going on here in Norris Creek, what is your reaction? How does this factor into all of the other things you've seen before?
Well, to start off, it's probably the most destructive project of its kind in the history of my 45-year career in fisheries. They've destroyed the groundwater levels. They've destroyed riparian habitat. They've destroyed in-stream fish habitat. They've basically dewatered the higher water elevation streams and side channels, which are really productive. They've basically taken, put a pit in an area of high value, and the sand, the effluent is now covering salmon redds and habitat. It's just an absolute, it is an environmental crime. It's one of the worst environmental crimes of its type that I've seen in my career history.
It's the simplest ask we can make at this point in time. We're not trying to stop gravel extraction. I mean, that's not the point. Is we're trying to stop this kind of gravel extraction. The level and intensity of what's taking place here. It is not for protection of fish or fish habitat. It is not to protect these bridges. It's simply to provide aggregate to the local industry.
So what we have to say to the minister is, again, what?
We want a complete halt to any further gravel extraction out of Norris Creek until the matters that we are dealing with have been resolved. That would include Department of Fisheries and Oceans talking to CP Casey and providing them with a further letter of advice. Their current letter of advice apparently expires this year, and they're in negotiations now for future work. That would include dealing with this whole issue of how much gravel has been taken out of the river downstream and for what purpose. So we need to get that stuff resolved. We need to get it on the table. And we need to have saner heads making clear decisions. Like, this is not, should not be about simply extracting gravel from a creek. It should be about protecting the natural resources. These natural resources, and the reason that we're out here primarily, they belong to the people of British Columbia, and we need to have answers. We need to find out what's going on. Somebody is making decisions, and I don't think they're appropriate decision makers. It's easy for BC Mines to just say, yeah, okay, we'll give you a permit, and just let it go away, right? Once the permit is issued, too bad.
Well, the groundwater has the potential at Worth Creek of dropping because of what's happening in these pits, these holes dug here. Where was DFO to prevent this happening in the first place? I think we need an Auditor General's investigation. I don't think DFO can investigate itself because obviously they have screwed up. Jack Emberly along to Fraser.
Detailed information regarding works around fish and habitat used to be easily accessible. We could phone any agency involved and ask to review details of a proposed work project that might negatively impact salmon. Not any longer, says Werring, who has found barriers to information at every turn. Government agencies generally are slow to respond to emails, don't return phone calls, refer questions to other agencies, insist that answers to simple questions must be preceded with Freedom of Information requests that could take a year to be processed, and then show up so redacted it's hard to make sense of them. It is clear that government does not want the public to know how poorly it is protecting fish and habitat, how thoroughly it enables and shields industry. In the case of Norris Creek, as far as we can determine at this point in time, because of official silence, private citizens have conducted the investigation into why Worth Creek went dry in December 2024.